Well, not what I would have expected from HeatShock, but I guess that makes sense. Yeah, I guess that makes sense.
Hello THL, welcome to Salty Saturday. I am Donde, excited for our one big pro match of the evening. But before we get to that, I'm going to be joined this evening by Icicles. Ice, how you doing tonight?
Pretty salty, but put that aside, I'm happy to be doing this cast. And I hope, Donde, that you'll be bringing the utmost broadcasting integrity tonight, despite the fact that it's one of your teammates this week playing
Only the
on the broadcast.
Only the finest integrity here. And as you know, this being Salty Saturday, you being salty, will only add to the spice of the broadcast this evening. And what a broadcast it will be. It's only one match, as I mentioned. It is a pro match, and it's very relevant for the playoff race for at least one of these teams. HeatShock of WashU, they're pretty much locked in at this point, well, I mean, they're definitely locked in. They're pretty much locked in at the top spot. But Rami subbing in for AEON tonight, and AEON needs this win. They need to basically win out the rest of the week, and then have some help in addition to that. So it's going to be a real important match. As you can see, it is pro. We do know the bans already, so we can go ahead and show you that. It's a Warrior ban for HeatShock. I'm sorry, a Warlock ban for HeatShock, and Rami banned HeatShock's Warrior. So no Warlock tonight, unfortunately. So anybody who's hoping to see that will be sorely disappointed.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I mentioned that earlier in the broadcast before we actually got started, but HeatShock ban and Warlock kind of checks out. I was maybe expecting a Demon Hunter ban, but the way he's teched his Druid, bringing the Q Priest, definitely checks out to take out the Warlock instead. And Rami banning the Warrior, I think, is pretty standard for that lineup. You don't really want to give the Warrior any room to run, so the rest of his lineup should fare pretty well against the Druid, Mage, and Priest of HeatShock.
All right. So why don't we put these classes up on screen real quick for everyone to see? Since it is pro, we do have the benefit of seeing these lists. So rather than just talk about it, let's show everybody what the players will be working with tonight.
Picture is worth 1,000 words.
So on the left, we have HeatShock's lists, and on the right you have Rami's lists. And yes, so you can see, I mean, they're not anything too crazy, but any specific text or anything here that you like, Icicles, or do you think we're just gonna see a pretty standard match of Hearthstone tonight?
I think it would be fairly standard. HeatShock bringing the Priest that's been getting a ton of popularity recently. I like the way that deck plays. Be interesting to see how it works out tonight. The Druid lists, which we may see both of, probably more than some people would like, are pretty similar. HeatShock running Moonfires, Rami not, opting for a little more sustain and removal with the Wrath and the Soul. The Mage for HeatShock, probably a signature deck. No Khadgar tonight, but otherwise it looks like a fairly straightforward Highlander Mage list.
Yeah, these are definitely at this point fairly established lists. You know, we're at least about 6 weeks into the, or 5 weeks after the previous quote unquote nerf, not slowing DH down too much, but this is not anything out of the ordinary for what we've been seeing people bring in THL, specifically HeatShock. I know this is Rami's first and probably only week in THL, but hey, you know, these are the same types of lists that he'd probably be bringing to GM at this point. So that being said, I think we're ready to kick this thing off. It's going to be an exciting one, so I'm going to let the players know that they are all set to. Actually, they are already going, so cool. So they read our minds. They were like, we're ready to go right now. So HeatShock will be on the bottom of your screen. Rami will be on the top.
Donde versus Malfurion.
Rami was even so kind as to invite me to spectate.
My dear Malfurion.
Alright, everything should be up and visible now for everybody. So we can see the Priest pick for HeatShock out of the gate, and Rami is going with the Druid.
I think this is a tough matchup for the Priest, especially looking at Rami's opening hand with Overgrowth, Breath of Dreams. If he wants to keep Glowfly, probably not in this matchup. Just having the ramp is what you're looking for here. On HeatShock's side, Breath of Biobeam is a great card to start with. He probably throws the other two back, just looking for maybe some buffs to play off that Biobeam when it becomes active. But fighting an uphill battle, especially with the start that Rami's going to be looking at.
Yeah, I think the Sethic Veilweaver is not a bad pickup at all in the early going here for HeatShock. But I think he's probably going to be looking for you know, those early Holy Novas. That way he does have a way to combat a Glowfly Swarm if it comes out on curve or even earlier for Rami.
Yeah, I think the Druid's path to victory isn't necessarily through going wide with the Glowfly, the way it is against most classes, just because Priest is likely to have that AoE ready to go. But the ramp is the most important thing.
HeatShock with a good pickup of Renew as well, something to target, so you can start generating random spells with that Sethic Veilweaver as well, but he'll play the Vile Fiend out on 2. And Rami, Breath of Dreams, no Dragon, hoping to draw one, but he does not get it.
Yeah, I think he's okay with that. I like the decision to play Breath as opposed to Fungal, because you know it's likely going to be a long game against the Priest, and you don't want to run the risk of burning your key cards like Mount Cellar or Ysera Unleashed with an early Fungal. So it makes sense to hold on to that one.
Yeah, in some matchups you're okay with burning 1 or 2, you know, of your win conditions, but yeah, against Priest, you know they're going to be drawing this out, like you said, so you want to keep them all, and I think that's a good decision as well. We might just see Coin into Overgrowth here on 3 for Rami.
Depends on how much he's afraid of this Sethic, but no, I think you're right. I think just getting the ramp going is more important. Good play by HeatShock, though, to kind of give him that choice, make him actually think about doing something other than ramp, but I think Rami knows that the key to winning here is just to get to 10 mana before your opponent gets to 6, so...
And HeatShock did pick up second Renew here, so he's going to go ahead and... Well, he picked up the second one. He used the second one last turn. That was his original Renew. And he's going to see what is in the Priest box, so to speak. A Shadow Word Death, not a bad extra copy of a card to have in Mind Games. I've found that when I'm playing this deck, Mind Games against Druid is often very good.
Right. They're only playing a few select key minions, and you're guaranteed to get something good.
So Wrath will end the Sethic Veilweaver's life here, but it's already done more than enough for HeatShock.
I think that the Sethic has been huge, getting the extra penance, the extra Shadow Death, some of those from the renews, but still just really key cards that HeatShock is going to be very happy to have later on. When the Mind Games comes out, pulls probably the worst option, but when the worst option's a 4/8, you're really not that unhappy with it.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I mean, if he now can pick up something along the lines of Psyche Split and or Grave Runes and, of course, Apotheosis, that thing is going to be very hard, as Druid severely lacks the single target removal outside of the Bog Beams, but then you're going to have to invest everything into just getting rid of one minion. That's not ideal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Rami here looking for that Mount Solar for next turn to start to fight for this board, but I have to just summon a 3-2 and see what happens. HeatShock's putting out enough early pressure to make this uncomfortable for Rami.
And essentially what amounts to a tempo Grogs here will draw the Galakrond, and yeah, like you said, pressure is the key right now. HeatShock, Druid doesn't like pressure. Druid likes to be able to start doing its crazy things, and that is not the situation that HeatShock wants to allow Rami to get started with. So he does have Ysera in hand, does Rami, which will be a nice play next turn. That Overflow was his first big draw of the game, but then he can start to hopefully start running his portals out there onto the field and start to actually have some turns that will concern HeatShock.
The pain here playing Ysera for Rami is that you just saw HeatShock play Kronks knowing that Galakrond's coming down right behind, so he's gonna really hope to hit somebody dragons off this Fungal Fortune to make that outcome less likely, and he gets one right away, so very nice.
And that Galakrond is not invoked in any way, so it will just be a single Shadow or Death effectively. But wow, 2 dragons, 3 on the first. Haven't even seen a single other card. Well, there's one.
A great series of draws for Rami there.
Absolutely, and he's reloaded up with another Fungal Fortunes if he wants to do that the following turn. And he picked up Savage Roar as well, so this is really scary all of a sudden for HeatShock, unless he can start to remove... Well, we know he has 2 Shadow or Deaths in hand, so that only can target the Deathwing. Well, not anymore. That actually, unfortunately, played kind of right into HeatShock's hand.
He still needed to do that just to prevent too much damage coming back. Just because Priest is likely to have those removal tools. So I do like the choice to put the Iron Bark on the Ysera just to slow down that damage, but like you said, 2 Shadow or Deaths in hand is going to make that a little painful if HeatShock decides to go that direction. He could just about clear this board that way. We'll see what he decides to do.
Yeah, I think if you knew, like, obviously we have the caster vision here and have the full view of HeatShock's hand. If you knew the Galakrond's in his hand, and you're kind of daring him to go ahead and play that out there, hit the 1 in 5 to blow up your taunt. But with Shadow or Death in hand, he can potentially do that instead this turn and still have the option to play as he is appearing to want to go with Shield of Galakrond, but he can use it for penance now at this point. There are other options for HeatShock.
Yeah, I'd be surprised at the shield. I was covering it for a second. Lazul gives good information, potentially Savage Roar. Probably not the exact options he wanted. Bog Beam's pretty nice though, just for another option for removal. Would expect now to see both Shadow or Deaths come out, and then some board cleanup here. I like that back. He's just throwing his damage space. He's decided his path to victory is killing Rami before anything else hits the board. So I like this. This is a good aggressive play. Something that Druid can struggle with for sure.
And all of a sudden it's dangerous territory for Rami. He does pick up the Mount Seller, which can allow him to kind of have a hybrid turn here where maybe he tries to draw a few dragons, play a few beasts, but he's got to clear some stuff off board and or get a taunt in the way. But Mass Dispel, sitting in HeatShock's hand from an earlier Sethic Veilweaver turn, is could be bad news, because there's no way that Rami can know that is there.
He's opting not to go with the Mount Seller. This may be an overflow turn. We'll probably leave up just the Kronks now. See what he gets off the overflow, hoping for some more dragons. Another shot at a better Mount Seller turn next when there's potentially less on the board threatening him.
And he does make the most of that overflow, gets all the health back to his minions. There's a portal on the 4th draw.
It's a nice pickup against Priest.
2 sticky minions, not, well, I mean, Waxadread not sticky in the traditional sense, but in the sense that with the thinning of his Druid deck, this will likely be back here in pretty short order. Oh! Did
I think
caught
Rami,
3-2.
he was thinking he's going to be able to attack, but he had already used a first claw on one of the other minions, so that Kronx lives.
Now HeatShock has to decide here what does he want to do. And this is a situation now where, HeatShock doesn't have a lot of power on board. He can clear probably at least 2 of these minions. But then Rami will have follow-up after that.
I think a Master Spell kind of works here. It takes out a lot of surprising amount of value for Rami with both the damage off the 4/5, the reload from the Wax Dread, and the minion from the 5/6. So wouldn't be surprised to see that come down. But right now he's still thinking about that Shield Galacon that he really wants to play. 2 turns in a row he's been sitting on it. Okay, so no Master Spell. Looks like he's just removing what he can. Expecting there to be a dragon in Rami's hand.
And there's 2 more portals still remaining out of the 8 cards in the deck, and now Wax Dread as well.
Wow. Murzon off of Shield is pretty nice.
HeatShock knows all about the Murzon off the Galakron effects after last night.
I supply only the
So this is a much better Malseller turn for Rami, with only 1 minion to deal with instead of 4. And to load up that board.
He draws a second Malseller as well.
Only 2 spells, but I think that's okay. You still force the priest to deal with this. You're at the stage of the game where any board is representing potential lethal, so HeatShock has to respect it.
And not at this point, you don't really want to go ahead and dump everything into one push, because you want to kind of drip the remaining threats that you have out if you can.
Correct.
And at this point now, he's got, like we said, 2 portals still in the deck. He's got Wax Dread in the deck. You don't want to burn anything if you can avoid it, so leaving space on the board for the potential minion to instantly get played from your deck, I think that's the right move here.
Yeah, blocking the right balance between the pressure and not overextending. But with Bubble Savage in hand, you don't have to extend onto the board too much to potentially end this game. And not a lot of good options on HeatShock's side. He can put up a taunt. He could... I think Galakron would just be death here, so really not good options to deal with this. No removal. And maybe Disciple to see what you can find from that. Maybe you Galakron thinking you kill something, and that's enough, but I think this ends up being hope for something good off of this. Another Murzon. That's great, but not an immediate help, so...
Pumps the Galakron up a little bit, and it hits one of the higher value minions, but also hits that owl, which was not what he was looking for.
I think this is lethal.
So we have 13 on board. Savage Roar is an additional 8, and then 2 of them is 29. So yeah, plus hero power is lethal.
Correct.
I was talking about this the other day. Savage Roar lethals are the most stressful test of my ability to count in all of Hearthstone.
I think it just depends on how much you play the Druid deck, because it becomes like second nature once you're there. But if you don't play it a lot, then yeah, you just sit there and you're like using all your fingers, all your toes, trying to figure out what what the number is. But
I think we all at one point or another have come up 1 or 2 damage short from what we expected it to be, and it's just sat in our brain forever.
As long as that happens before you start playing the cards, it's okay. Once you realize halfway through that, wait a second, that's not lethal.
Oh no, it's
a little more trouble.
It's happened before. It absolutely happened before to me, but it does not happen to Rami, which is what's important here. And Rami gets the first win with the Druid.
Yeah, a big win. Game certainly looked like HeatShock was putting out enough pressure to, take an unfavored matchup, but Rami finding just the right tools at the right time to swing that back in his favor and take the win with the Druid. So, good start to the series.
And that one was interesting too, because the Druid didn't really do a whole lot of crazy stuff early on. Like, he did have the ramp, he had Overgrowth,
right,
but he didn't have that like on 5, on curve, I'm gonna go nuts with Mount Seller. It didn't seem like the classic crazy Druid game, and alternatively, HeatShock looked like he had it for a while.
Yeah, I think the key turn was HeatShock played the Kronks to kind of put pressure on Rami's desire to play Ysera. And then Rami plays this area, innervates out the Palm of Fortunes, and pulls several dragons off that portal. I think that was a big turning point in that game to kind of put the pressure back onto HeatShock and take away the easy out of playing Galakrond just to remove the Ysera. So heads up play there, and looking forward to the next game.
Yeah, then that's the key with Druid. A lot of time you want to do just enough to keep threatening, and then overwhelm all in one go, which is exactly what Rami did. And we'll see if he can do it here in game 2. He's going to be the Demon Hunter. HeatShock runs that priest out for a second go, and Holy Nova in that opener for HeatShock is a well 2. Why what's better than one Holy Nova?
That's exactly what you want to see. And yeah, it definitely makes sense for HeatShock to queue that priest up again. I think it's favored into both the Demon Hunter and Warriors, kind of what this deck was designed to beat. The 2 most popular classes, so no surprise in him bringing that back. And for Rami, kind of expecting that Demon Hunter, I think, gives him the best chance against beating this priest, but this is going to be a tough matchup. So
HeatShock says, I only need 1 Holy Nova to do what I want to do. He picks up Renew and Penance instead, which I think are just fine. Rami's got the proactive turn, 1 Battle Mage.
Yeah, I mean, this isn't too bad a start, starting hand for Rami. You've got things to do the first few turns, which is very important. Priest isn't starting with anything dormant yet. HeatShock's list does run both 2 Homunculus and 2 Vile Fiends. Not seeing either of those yet. So, that's kind of a win for Rami. But all this removal, the Holy Nova waiting, the Amit pickup off the Disciple is going to be really hard for this Demon Hunter to deal with. So I think I'm leaning towards the start from HeatShock, potentially carrying this game.
Yeah, the immediate, the way the hands are structured right now, I have to agree. HeatShock has the tools he needs, and Rami's going to have to really be on fire with the draws. So looking at his turn 3 here now, he's got Umberwing in hand. He's got Chaos Strike in hand. It's probably going to be one of those 2.
Yeah, Umberwing makes sense. Easy to clear off the 1/2. Not that it's too threatening, but you don't want to give Priest too many options to buff. It's unlikely this 1/2 ever gets buffed, but you might as well establish the Umberwing and get some present of the Horde. And let's see, is he going to swing with it? Yeah, he's going to. Oh, okay, I like this. He swings before playing the weapon, so that he guarantees that he'll have that charge ready to go on turn 5 for the Adept.
Yeah, not a play you see a lot of players make. Definitely heads up knowing what he's got in his hand, but it is also a signal to HeatShock that says, I'm not looking, I'm looking forward to what I can use this weapon for in the future, and that almost always means a turn 5 Glaive Mount Adept.
Yeah, the decision to trade with the 2/2 instead of trading with the weapon, you're absolutely right. Not a play that most players make, and makes a lot of sense in context here. So I think this might be coin Amit for HeatShock. I think it's the best answer to what's out there. This isn't too threatening of a Horde, so you don't really feel like you want to use any of your removal on it. And Amit, like I said, was a big pickup off the Disciple because it gives him something that is going to be hard for Rami to deal with now.
Yeah, not something you want to leave up long term if you can avoid it, but at the same time, the Demon Hunter really doesn't want to run every resource they have into it. So we're going to start with Chaos Strike, see what draw. It's an Altruist. That might make him think twice about Twin Slice.
Yeah, I think he has to kill it. It's not something you can leave up.
And the Twin Slice will enable him to get up to 6 attack, using just one of the whelps, push a little bit of damage. And now he's got Skull of Gul'dan in prime position. He'll be using that Glaive Bound next turn, I imagine, have Skull of Gul'dan for 6, and then we might see some fun Altruist shenanigans. Well, fun for one member of the game anyway.
Yeah, no, I think it was you mentioned using up all the resources to kill that Hama, and I think using only the first half of the Twin Slice was a good call in order to preserve future options. Yeah, this feels like it's going to be the Adept's turn to set up the Skull. I think it just makes too much sense. War Glaives on 5 for now is still really good, but setting up a Skull on 6 against Priest is huge.
And HeatShock has the exact answer to that, which would be Shadow or Death. He's going to renew first, see what he draws out of that, and a couple options.
I think
probably Shadow Madness or Dark Prophecy, I would think.
I think Dark Prophecy. You don't have many proactive plays in your hand. He does choose a Shadow Madness. That makes sense as well. It kind of answers a potential Overseer in the future really easily. A little less RNG than the Dark Prophecy would be, but yeah, might be struggling for something to do next turn based on what Rami does with his skull.
Poor warlock.
So Rami does fire out the skull. He picks up Metamorphosis, an Umberwing, and a Chaos Strike. So Chaos Strike can kind of mess around with the flow of an Altruist turn, depending on what he draws with it. So at this point, you're probably looking at, say, Umberwing this turn here, maybe Warglave's next turn after you hit again with the Umberwing. So that way you have a nice clear path to a bunch of cheap cards for that Altruist in a couple turns.
Yeah.
Oh, Psyche Stick could not have showed up at a better time.
They pick up. Yeah. Yeah, I think this is almost certainly going to be Warglave's now to clean this up, but there's a little bit of damage coming back on Rami. I don't think he cares that much. The one class you can use your life as a resource the most safely is Priest, for sure. So, depends on how much he is concerned about these taunts being in his way. See what he ends up doing. Wow, skull on the right. That is a tempting offer.
Considering the Altruist, I would also agree with that. I mean, I think you probably are looking at the odds of you drawing a low enough cost card on the next turn that you can still possibly play that skull, and that would be kind of the consideration here to go ahead and play the Warglaves instead. And this is going to be, 7 damage to each of these, and 7 damage push plus the 2. So that's a pretty good turn for Rami.
I think it was the right call. Yeah. As tempting as that skull is, this is where you start to push the damage. You're setting up the Altruist, you've got the cheap Metamorphosis, you need to go. And this is your opportunity.
Oh, and it couldn't have been a better decision with the Apotheosis draw off the top for HeatShock, and unfortunately no minion to put it on.
He really doesn't have anything to do here. I mean, there's none of these options are good. Holy Nova is maybe the best of a bad lot. I mean, Hero Power in your face, maybe Penance a 1/1, but maybe you Shadow Madness a 1/1 just to clear the board, but I mean, that's just not, none of this is good. I don't like this.
I think if I'm HeatShock, 19 feels like you should be in a good spot, but we've all seen a Demon Hunter come out of nowhere with a ton of damage, so it's not in any way absurd to think that HeatShock is feeling concerned about his health total at this point, especially with Warglaves on the field. But
I think he's more concerned with not having anything to do.
Yeah, I would say that would be the big concern here, but it looks like he's just going to Hero Power and possibly pass at this point.
I think you have to. I think you just have to wait. I don't think you can use one of these tools here. Yeah.
The ops for these it feels bad, but it takes 2 damage off the board. And there's that cheap Battle Fiend. Can play that skull if he wants to.
No, I think that's right. Yeah, I think you start setting up for the big Altruist.
And 3 free cards is basically the dream there. Playing everything from the opposite side of the hand, he only needs to play. If depending on what he gets as far as a first card on the other side, only that frozen Shadow Weaver is really messing up.
Yeah, you could opt to play the Odd Merchant here on the Battle Fiend.
He could do that.
To give him a clean from the left of playing all the cards. I think he really wants to save the Odd Merchant for the Altruist, because Priest has a little bit of trouble with the Divine Shields. I wouldn't have played all the 0 manas, but I also wouldn't. Well, he's playing more than I probably would have thought. I guess he's just valuing the board presence more than the Altruist value.
Well, I think in his mind there, you're probably saying, I just saw Holy Nova, and that was a card that was held, at the outset of the game. So unless he drew another Holy Nova at some point between now and then, I'm in the clear, so to speak. Though Shadow Madness couldn't have been predicted, not on the list, but is a great card here to use now, as that plus Penance clears this board.
He might opt to get the minion down, just to have something in play, and potentially just Penance away the 2/3, or just Shadow Madness to both 2/2s, which actually I think I like better.
Does he ever just Apotheosis the Shield of Galakron, though?
It's possible. I think you kind of run the risk of a Chain Lethal here with that much power on the board.
Exactly, and that's kind of what I was thinking he might be most worried about, but I didn't know if it was something that, maybe you take the chance at it. But no, he's going to go to Shadow Madness.
Yeah, I think it's the kind of chance you take when you don't have the tools otherwise. But in this case, because of the Shadow Madness, I think it's a really clean answer for 2/3 of that board. So I think it makes a lot of sense to play it that way.
Gladebound Adept, kind of a weak pickup in terms of the Altruist turn. However, this gives Rami an alternate line now because he can go ahead and Hero Power into the 4/5, use the Gladebound to clear it, and then potentially Metamorphosis if he would like to push another 5 damage. And then that still gives him a pretty clean-looking Altruist turn the following turn. And I think if HeatShock's really been following the flow of the game, a lot of those cards, Altruist in particular, has been over there since turn 4. So that's a pretty dead giveaway that Rami has been kind of setting up for something along those lines.
Yeah, I think the other consideration here is using the Adept to clear the 4/5, then I'll Merchant on the Amani just to push 5 that way. That feels very threatening to the Priest especially. The Priest doesn't really want to use Shadow Word Death on that particular minion. But it looks like he's taking initially looking like he's setting up for Altruist, but you might have called it correctly. I don't know, he's just bouncing around all these cards, so tough to see what he's thinking, but looks like you had it right off the bat with the Metamorphosis play.
Well, I like the Metamorphosis personally just because, that's already another 5 damage thing on the field for you to just pop next turn. However, that's, he doesn't know Penances in hand to go ahead and clear this Berserker because technically he could have just used the Guardian next turn and get that 5 damage, or extra 3 damage in this case for the Berserker. But it's not going to be the case as it's going to be a full clear here with the Penance and the Shadow Word Death.
Job's done.
So right now he's, depending on what he draws, 3 damage off lethal. There it is.
Oh.
Is that enough mana? No, he doesn't have enough mana to do that.
No, it's 1 shy. But Altruist plus Frozen Shadow Weavers will keep that Lightwell from being able to attack and heal.
My math was also incorrect because of the Penance play. So a little farther off the legal than I said. Apologies for not doing math, as we just talked about in the Druid game.
That's okay.
But
Hearthstone is a game of math.
Unfortunately, sometimes. But this is a really, really strong turn.
Basically, Soul Mirror at this point is the draw.
I don't even know if that's enough. I mean, it might be, but...
Or Shadow... Well, no. I would say it doesn't give you a random priest spell. It gives you a random priest minion. I was hoping maybe Plague of Death, but that is not what you will get off of a Galakron, Disciple of Galakron. So that is a 2-0 now to Rami.
Yes, sir. That being said, when I look at HeatShock's lineup, it does seem tailored to beat Warrior, and that's all that Rami has left. So we'll see if HeatShock's plan of targeting Warrior pays off, because he's going to have to do it 3 times in a row.
Yeah, Priest is very, very good into that Warrior, in most Warrior lists in general, but we will see if that is in the cards for HeatShock. But Rami in strong position right now, and definitely what AEON needs, this little shot of life into their playoff chances.
That was what your mindset is going into Game 3 when you've lost the first 2 games with the same deck, but that deck is your best choice for the next game. Do you just fire it up and run it out there a 3rd time?
It can certainly be tilting, but I think it's still the right choice. HeatShock is a good enough player that he can hopefully separate that from his mind and say, like, I'm not going to get tilted here. I'm going to play the best deck. I'm not going to let the fact that I've lost 2 games now with it discourage me, and that's what we see. And he's got the right cards in his hand to start with Disciple of Galakron on one, and there's a Homunculus as well, so he's going to off-play that instead.
Yeah, absolutely. This is definitely the turn 1 play you want to make.
And on the other side here, Rami, he's got Rampage now, and Corsair Cash, he's got 2 War Mauls, so a lot of options on how he wants to structure the first few turns of his game.
Thy blood be born again.
Yeah, definitely the early game tools that you would want as Warrior here. The only thing you're really missing is probably a Battle Rage that you would probably want.
Coin War Maul is very nice, though, with the 1-2.
I challenge you to Makara!
Yep, just put it on the board, present a threat.
Now,
Rampage up.
Yeah, if he can get that to live next turn, that is going to be very hard to remove for HeatShock, since it'll have 4 attack, and that's kind of the unhappy zone for Priest.
Still is after all these years. I like this. I like the heal of Warmaul just to take Rampage out of the picture. It might not have been the choice for Rami there, but at least takes that option off the table.
Well, Rami can still ping it into the 2/5 and do it himself if he would like. So he might just very well do that here.
Yeah, it's just far less threatening to play Rampage on a minion that's already attacked. I like this, playing the other Warmaul into the 2/5, just keep the board clear. This is what you want as warriors, just to make sure that the priest has as few options as possible for the psych splits, the apotheosis, all the good stuff that priest packs their deck with that requires a minion being on the board. That being said, nothing you can do really about a stealth minion, so this is starting to look it still kind of looks like it could go either way, but the 4/11 is no joke. So
yeah, it's a very, very chunky minion to try and remove for any class, let alone a class that doesn't like the 4 attack minions. But this would be the time for a timer to show up. I forget, is that in HeatShock's list? I don't think
No.
every list runs it, so no, he doesn't even have that as a choice.
Yeah, he doesn't have that option. I kind of like Psych Split here, just to put more on the board of your own. Give yourself the chance to answer this 4/11 over time. It's not going to kill you in a fast period of time, so you give yourself, like, you need to be able to fight for the long term. Warrior doesn't run Inner Rage, or Inner Fire, excuse me, so you're not worried about that. So I think I like this, so just getting as much on the board yourself as you can, just to fight for the long term. See how much Rami wants to start killing these minions. Lance is a good option here, depending on what lackey he draws. He might opt to just hero power, but Rush Minion might be something you save with those Bomb Wranglers in hand.
Yeah, especially with that Inner Rage, he's got the combo, or the chunk of it anyway, Inner Rage plus that Corpron. And Veil Weaver might come down. Do you think he goes double Veil Weaver here and pops the, yeah, he might just pop the 4/7 into his 4/7 and renew it and get a couple spells. He's going to get 3 spells here.
You're gonna have 2 mana, so looking for Penance, you can find one. Powered Shield gives him 2 more chances at it.
Shadow Word Ruin all over the place.
Not the worst option. Generally speaking, when the warrior plays a minion that has more than 5 attack, it's already done something that you didn't like, whether it be the Brutes or Enraged Corcron or Gromish, but we'll see how this ends up working out.
Going to continue taking chances here to try and find what he needs, but
if nothing else, he's going up his hand.
Oh, for sure. He's so many options at this point. Now, Shadow Word Death, Holy Nova, and Soulmere. Soulmere is the pick, and a Holy Ripple on top of that, and a Massive Spell. So, wow, this is this is going to be a hard mana saver to deal with now for Rami.
Except the last piece of that. Well, I guess you still want Rampage, but definitely come together for a combo if you get to that point.
Yeah, it might be enough if he can push enough damage here in this next turn or two to then overwhelm HeatShock all in one go. But there's
counting
also
on not getting the Apotheosis.
Yeah, I would say an Apotheosis is pretty deadly to your hopes, and of course, just a 9/9 on board anyway can hit you for a couple next couple turns and just kind of take you out of the game.
What now?
Yeah, kind of a tough spot. This turn doesn't look like he can deal with that 9/9, so just kind of doing what he can on the board. He may run this bomb into the 9/9 potentially, or save the lackey and armor up again. That's probably better.
My hand is full.
HeatShock burns the Shadow Word Death. He's probably not too broken up about that, considering the 2 Shadow Word Ruins in hand and the Soul Mirror. He's got plenty of removal options, so now the question becomes, where does he go from here? Both of his Veil Weavers are gone, so the random spells are done, at least for the time being.
I like something with my vision. See what option do you get. You're probably looking at Holy
Oh,
Ripple.
an inner rage.
That's pretty good.
Imagine if he thought steals here and gets, like, if he inner rages the 9/9 thought steals, you know, on the hopes that there's that Bloodsworn mercenary in hand. This could be a pretty big turn.
He's not gonna have the hand space to do that.
Well, if he inner rage first, he would.
It's true. I think he's just gonna play the minion and just try to establish more presence, knowing that this will deal more AOE.
Second inner rage pickup. That makes the combo now. Now it can go up to an 8/1, so it's 16 damage in hand right now for Rami. 17 with the bomb, 20. So, I mean, I guess
bomb goes.
you could lead with the bomb, and if you hit it face for 4, you play your combo and win.
That is an out for sure. I mean, it's a little percentage out, but
yeah, he has to
at this point,
essentially the 1 out of 12. But why not start with it, right? I mean, there's no harm.
yeah, I mean, there's good outcomes no matter what with that bomb. Killing off the 9/3 obviously is one you don't mind.
No, not at all. That was probably the second best outcome, other than just having straight out lethal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that the Goblin Lackey also adds 1 to the combo next turn, so it brings that up to a total 18.
Correct. And a Witchy Lackey, not altogether that useful here. We might see just Ankar and
Ankar, the Bomb Wrangler.
Be ready for another turn. Penance will help HeatShock's case, but now the question becomes, again, just like last game with Demon Hunter, how safe does HeatShock feel at 20 health? Potentially, he can go up to 26 if he really wanted to. And that doesn't really tell him any information. That's it. The game is over.
Crazy. Wow.
If he had used Penance, or if he had healed face, he could have, or both, or of course then also Holy Nova, could have kept himself alive. But how can you know that your opponent has the exact combo already in hand, only 13 cards into their deck? And
right.
This is, and for insult to injury, he drew a second Bloodsworn Mercenary as well. So here's just all the damage, exactly enough with the weapon and an extra 1 from that bomb. So that is it. Rami gets the sweep.
There you go. That was definitely impressive. Obviously we've been watching HeatShock all season. There's an outstanding player, and Rami's a GM. And as good as HeatShock is, and as good as HeatShock plays, going up against a GM is not the usual THL level of competition. No offense to the rest of us, but that was definitely impressive.
We have seen a few GMs have come through THL in our time here. Language Hacker, one of the most recent ones, and Eddie has played in THL before, Papa Jason. So it's definitely a place where this quality of player can be found from time to time. But man, Rami just putting on a clinic right there, and really, really, just even in the matchups where that deck, like the Presec should win most of the time, just never seemed to really have too much of trouble with it. So we'll see if we can get Rami in here for an interview, because I think that would be awesome.
Yeah, great.
But that is a big win for AEON 2, keeping those playoff hopes alive, slim as they may be. A necessary win here. So now AEON leads the week 9-4 rather. I apologize, but the points they're giving out to WashU is not as important as the points they're acquiring, since WashU is pretty much locked in anyway where they are. Only the points that can be gained for AEON are what's going to impact that 3rd and 4th playoff contender. As I believe CMAC had done the math earlier, and the 2nd slot had now been locked in by Bad to the Bone. Or Tap Last, I apologize.
Tap Last, yeah.
Rami, unfortunately, is going to have to decline the interview. He said he has a cold right now, so he does not want to speak, so I can understand that. That's unfortunate, but congratulations to him nonetheless. So,
no worries. It was still a well-played series. I think we learned a lot from it, so.
Yeah, if, that might be a lot of people's first or if you watched last night's stream as well, second exposure to the priest deck, cube priest, so to speak. No cubes, but it kind of has that same idea behind the like cube warlock of old. Might be a way that you can kind of, when you see it on ladder or you see it in your THL matches, have a nice little game plan to counter what it does. And of course, if you're watching from the other side of the table there, a way to play it so that way you can avoid the pitfalls that we saw HeatShock fall into tonight. But I don't think HeatShock played it particularly badly.
No, I mean, there's always little things that he's going to go back and question. The only thing that stands out to me is that last turn, the thought steal into the brute. You see that and you're like, oh, hey, this is good. I like this. He might have not been thinking in the back of his head of, what the warrior reach was at that point, or he may have just been thinking it was 18 and not thinking about the lackeys. It's always tough to consider like all the possibilities, and at the same time, like how much do you want to weigh that versus establishing your own? Because if you play too defensive for too long, it's not going to matter, and you're still going to get ultimately beat down. So, I think that's one thing he may kick himself for, but I don't necessarily think he made the wrong decision either, even though we saw what the outcome was. But, in those cases, it's always a tough call between risk reward. And in that case, the risk didn't pay off. But, long term, if Rami didn't have that specific lackey, then that could have paid off for sure.
Yeah, Hearthstone is a game of imperfect information. You never know exactly what's in your opponent's hand despite your best efforts, and we, as casters, know exactly what is going on. So it's easy for us to sit here and say, oh, well, you should have played around that 20 damage burst. You should have played around the 5-card combo. Well, mathematically speaking, like we said there in that last game, 17 cards were still in the deck for Rami. And HeatShock's probably sitting there thinking, well, if you have these 4 exact cards that you need, so be it. And that was what happened. So it's sometimes the higher percentage play is making the decision to say you don't want to worry about getting bursted down. But ultimately, at the end of the day, it can still cost you the win, even if it's the right decision at the time. So,
yeah, it wouldn't shock me if that was the last match that HeatShock lost on the pro circuit this season. Going into the playoffs, he's going to be a formidable opponent for whoever he gets matched up against. And after the 2 games on stream this week, I can imagine he'll be as if he needed any additional motivation to bring it into the playoffs. He's definitely going to be ready. So good luck to whoever is facing him next week.
Well, WashU did have the opportunity to at least try some different things a little bit this week, knowing that they were locked into playoffs. A little bit less on the on the risky side for them to go out and try some other lineups, and if it didn't work out, it didn't work out. No big deal. You come back with the knowledge going into week 1 of the playoffs, and hopefully, no bias intended. Hopefully that opponent would be AEON next week, getting a second crack at WashU, but that is still a very, very slim opportunity at the moment. So looking at the playoff race right now, before we head out for the evening, since we don't have a second match, despite my best efforts to procure one, WashU is still sitting at the top of the standings at 187. Tap Last is in second at 177. So WashU can pick up 4 more points this week total. And, I'm sorry, 15 more points. Nope. Sorry, the score, of course, has not yet been reported because that just
They
happened.
can pick up 11 more potentially. Or I guess now at this point, have y'all clinched the week or for the last 2 matches? No, because you lost. So yeah, they could pick up.
Wow, just gonna throw it out there like that, huh? Jeez, I mean it's true, but truth hurts.
It's true.
But AEON and Everyday We Trifling are now tied at 162 once more, in 5th place at the moment, with both teams still having 11 points on the table to acquire this week. However, Bad of the Bone and the Unknown are both at 169, tied for 3rd, with Unknown having 11 points available, Bad of the Bone having 15 points available. So really, really tight margins here, even with if Everyday We Trifle and AEON both score 11 in the remaining games, that still only can put them to a max of 173, which means the Unknown and Bad of the Bone each need 4 points. 4 points total to ensure at least being tied in the standings with Everyday We Trifle and AEON, and then it would come down to a tiebreaker situation, and 5 points will outright have them in the playoffs starting next week.
Yeah, so y'all are in a rough spot. Unknown with 2 matches left. they get a win and a point in the other match, Bed of the Bone, with 3 matches left. A win and a point in 3 matches. It's a lot to ask for. It's still possible, but you're really it's coming down to it for y'all for sure.
Yeah, it just goes to show that those early matches in the first few weeks of the season doesn't feel like they're that impactful, but every point matters. Every point throughout the course of the season, every match, you need to pick up what you can. And if you have a slow start like AEON did, then ultimately it's going to show up at the end of the season. You're going to be in a scramble to try and just keep yourself alive. So it is tough, but it's a long season. I think over the course of the season, the best teams do tend to gravitate towards the top when you have the more weeks to play. So hopefully we're going to see an exciting playoff series, a couple series, no matter who makes it. But that will be starting next week, so it goes semifinals and finals, and we will also be having the Legacy Finals next week, still to be determined who will be there, and Hero Playoffs also start next week. So a lot of action going on in the next few weeks of streams. So if you're new here, just checking us out, and you want to watch some playoff Hearthstone, and Grandmasters isn't quite back yet, feel free to tune back into us on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday nights, and occasionally on Saturday and Sunday afternoons as matches permit. And that is going to do it for us this evening. Icicles, thank you so much for joining me for our exciting match.
Hey, let me just shout out this, because I did shout you out for losing this week in the pro match, but you did win in the Legacy playoffs, so there you go. I want to at least give you some credit.
It's give and take, right? You can't have it all the time. So we take what we can, and I'll be happy to move on if we do. If not, at least I can say I didn't hurt my team's chances there. So I do appreciate the shout out.
There you go.
All right, well, that's going to do it for us this evening. Make sure to tune back in tomorrow night, starting at 8 p.m. Eastern. We will have a couple more matches for you. I can actually look up exactly who those are right now. Let's see. Sunday Showdown, starts at 8:30. And it's only going to be one match. As far as I know right now, it is Itachi of Stay the Blazes Home versus Solo Jazz of the Unknown. So if it does happen to be tight for the Unknown, that could be the deciding match that will determine who makes the pro playoffs. So tune in 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time tomorrow, same channel, for one more pro match this week. That is it for us. Thank you for joining. Hope to see you here next week, and we will be back with playoff action. So, Icicles, thank you again. Have a great night, everybody.
Good night.